The Life Talk Show is about testimonies where you can listen to be inspired, encouraged, uplifted, and entertained. It's the life. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the Life Talk Show. I am your host, Ashley Cotton, and with me today, I do have Miss Allison Denise. She offered, well, actually, I reached out to her to see if she would be able to come on and be a guest on the talk show because I came across her testimony actually on around January. That's when she made it public and she posted, and I was reading it and I said, wow, I really want her to come on to share her story with us, her experience of what she's been through, because after all, this is about testimonies. This is about our walk through this life, trying to do the very best that we can do of what we have and believing in Jesus as our anchor to help us, to pull us through. And so without further ado, Allison Denise, the petite powerhouse, is a woman who has discovered you have less hurt to heal from when you develop the self-love to walk away from bad relationships faster. Focus on reaching goals in other areas of your life and understand that enjoying your own company is kryptonite to toxic people. Both a domestic violence and narcissist abuse survivor, Allison Denise, affectionately known as AD, healed from the codependency and self-esteem issues that caused her to end up in those relationships, and now uses her platform to teach others how to do the same through sharing her own personal dating stories and utilizing her no-nonsense approach as a dating relationship coach to decode various negative and unproductive dating mindsets and patterns that are experienced by many but understood by few. In addition to serving as a keynote speaker and workshop conference and facilitator, Allison Denise is host of her own self-titled podcast, hosts two new YouTube channels, is 1/3 of the BAD Bad Squad radio show, is an upcoming author, blogger, vice president of Greek relations for Ubuntu Group. Am I saying that right, Allison? Ubuntu Group LLC, a proud member of the Zeta Phi Beta Sorority, Inc., Incorporated, and makes sure she's waiting for her future partner by not waiting for him. In her free time, Allison Denise is a self-proclaimed nerd who enjoys learning, reading, listening to anything by Eric Robinson, buying new shoes and handbags, exercising, and spending time with her close circle of friends. She resides in a Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas metroplex with her son, Logan. So thank you for coming on to the show, Allison. I greatly appreciate it. Now, like I mentioned before, the reason why I invited you to come on to the show is because I read your post that you put on Facebook, and I'm actually going to read it and share it with my audience. And so this is how it starts off. So this is a post from what? Oh, wait a minute. Let me go to it. Hold on. That's okay. Here it is. Okay, so it says, this morning, my hand grazed the scar under one of my breasts from a stab wound, the one that punctured my lung, the one that caused me to have to go into surgery twice because the knife used was dirty and my lung was reinflating with bacteria, the one that caused me to be fitted with a chest tube that was equally keeping me alive and causing me pain I can't describe every time I took a breath. I thought about that attack for a few minutes, then the attacks that came after. Paramedics apparently asked me where Logan was while I was bleeding out from my head and chest on the floor. I said I didn't know, even though I could be heard on the 911 call, not even knowing my own damn name. Obviously, signs of a concussion didn't matter. CPS was brought in to check for possible neglect. Luckily, the caseworker assigned had some sense and knew it was BS, but she told me had my ex-husband, the one who tried to kill me, not verify that I was that not verify what I said, she may have had to take Logan away from me for a while. The reality that it would have been that easy for me to lose him is why I hardly let anyone near him now and don't share my address with many people. And then she goes on to being laid off, to get into a car accident, to meeting a narcissist, and emotionally unavailable for men that were emotionally unavailable. And so she just continues to go on and on and on. And just for the sake of time, I'm not going to continue to read it, but let's just start from there. Allison, the fact that your ex-husband tried to kill you.
He did. So I always like to go on record because you hear what happened at the end, and it's very easy to want to vilify, where is this dude at? But I do want to make it clear I did not marry a bad guy. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
marry I didn't marry someone who was abusive. I married someone who snapped. And the reason I wanted to make that distinction is not just for him, but because one of the biggest myths when people hear my story, based off of what we've seen in media and stuff like that, is that I was an abused woman. Because how do you go from not being abused to almost being killed? And I want people to know that it's possible. I want people to understand that in case they run into a similar situation with someone in their family or their circle. If that person tells you he never laid a hand on me before, they're not necessarily lying. I'm a witness.
Mm-hmm.
So, we were married. A very very sweet man. There were just certain areas where he didn't necessarily know how to take his role as the head of the home, as husband, and it didn't seem to be that big a deal. Before I got pregnant, it was just irritating. But something happens when you bring another life into the world, like that mama switch kicks on, and
Mm-hmm.
you just start to realize that you're not necessarily working with someone who is a partner. I started to feel like I had two children, not just one. And
Mm-hmm.
so originally I asked for a separation, and that's what I wanted. Back home in North Carolina, you have to be separated for a year and a day before you can even file for divorce. So my thought process was, in that year, we could go to counseling. He could really start to understand that I needed more help, uh, not just with Logan, but in the marriage, with a lot of goals that we had. I just needed more help, and that was my purpose. But something in him just assumed that it was going to be a different thing, that something else had to be going on, and that's when things just kind of escalated. And so the things leading up to the attack, he started doing this thing, and I can't remember exactly what it's called right now. Someone gave me the right terminology, but the 2 to 3 days leading up to this, he would just talk like it was almost like mindless rambling. But anytime I would try to go to sleep, he would wake me up just to keep talking. And so that led into me going to work. I was a trainer at the time, and that led to me going to work, and I was training a class, and I fell asleep in front of my class. Very unprofessional. And so I knew that I needed to get some rest. And so I ended up going to a friend's house. Something told me, I don't know, I know now, I wasn't sure what it was at the time, but something at the time said not to go to a family or friend member's house that he knew in terms of their address. So I went to another friend's house to get some sleep. I got up that morning, went back to my house to start my routine, getting Logan ready for school, blah, blah, blah. And my ex-husband's car was gone. We were still married at the time, but I noticed his car was gone, so I just assumed he went to work. What I didn't know is that he had parked his car further up in our neighborhood where we lived. And so I walked into the kitchen to go ahead and start my routine for the day. And as I'm walking from the kitchen into my room, there's a wall where the garage was. When you come into the garage, from the garage there was a kitchen, and there was a wall between the kitchen and the living room. He was hiding behind that wall. So as I was walking in one direction to head to the room, he got me with a bat because he was hiding behind the other, and just kept hitting me. I don't know if his purpose was to beat me until I fell, but I never fell. I kept talking. Uh, a lot of people said that's probably what saved me from, from being killed. The fact that I kept talking, the fact that I, wouldn't stop using my words and things like that. So I don't know. The attack may have happened for 5 minutes. I didn't know until he finally left that I had been stabbed. I had to call 911 for myself. And, later down the line, they showed pictures where he had planned to do way more. They showed pictures of where he had taken some ties from my deceased father, and he had cut them and put them around the posts of our bed at the time. He had a tarp underneath the bed. He had a drill that was charging. So he was planning to do quite a bit of damage to me. And what the police said is me talking probably stopped the attack, because he couldn't get me to shut up. So he couldn't go to plan 2 or phase 2.
Oh, okay. So that's a lot to unpack, Allison. And
Yeah.
so for one question I want to ask is that how was his upbringing as far as the dynamic? Like, did he have an example in front of him with his mother and father being together, and the father being a husband? Like, was he able to see that dynamic?
Um, his parents are amazingly wonderful people. They're very warm. Um, did a lot of family trips together. And they were like most people. They had their challenges. They had their moments where things, where life happened and things weren't necessarily going as expected. Um, but there was no, he was not raised in a situation where it should have been deemed okay
Mm-hmm.
to just not want to do better. If I think that's the best way I can say it.
Okay. And the next question is, what caused the trigger? What caused him to snap if the relationship and even he didn't start off that way? Like, what do you think was that one thing that just tipped him over?
So back during this time, I was also heavily indoctrinated with the religion part of Christianity, heavily indoctrinated. At that time, Christianity for me was more about a bunch of checklists. Make sure you do this and make sure you do that. And under the leadership that we had at the time, they preached a lot about spouses not having friends of the opposite sex for any reason. I understand now, looking back, why they preached that so heavily, because both of them were victims of infidelity in their previous marriages. I get it now. But at that time, I didn't take the distinction. And so they preached a lot about, this is how you avoid, this is a way to avoid adultery. You don't have friends of the opposite sex, and you try to do everything together. And my now ex-husband jumped on that. It was hard for me, because even though I do have female friends, I had a lot of male friends. Not male friends that I'd had sex with, not play friends, actual supportive friends.
Yeah.
And I was asked to walk away from them. And that was hard. And so, leading to towards the end of the marriage, I was training a group of people and ended up connecting with a gentleman that was in that class. And we had a lot in common. He was a few years older than me, and we just had a lot in common. And I told my ex-husband about this person. This isn't somebody he didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
but he wanted to immediately remind me, well, you know, you're not supposed to have male friends. And at that time, I was, well, what I see what it is now, I was more towards a rebellious stage. I was looking at what what did it benefit me to walk away from the friends that I had? What
Mm-hmm.
was the benefit? I did it, but now I can't talk to you about this, and you don't want to move forward in this area. And I had to change my son's daycare because you don't want to get up and take him for me, even though you don't have to go to work till the afternoon. I basically felt like I was doing a lot by myself that I shouldn't have had to do for myself. So I gave up friends for someone that I felt at that time wasn't even being the role in my life that he needed me to be. So
And you know
he
what?
brought.
I'm sorry, Allison. I don't mean to cut you off at all. If you want to finish your thought, you
No, no,
can.
no. Go ahead.
But one thing that you just brought up is that how much influence does our pastors, apostles, or whoever that are in leadership in church, how much influence do they have over us versus God having influence over us? Because a lot of people go off of what the pastor is saying, and very well so, because they are the leader of that flock. You know, they are the pastor over the church, which is us, not so much the building. But one thing is that if the prophet, the apostle, the pastor, teacher, whoever gives you a word, an unction from the Holy Spirit, and take it, and God confirms it, or God has been talking to you all along, and they just so happen to come along to confirm that for you, which will make it solid. But where do we as believers draw the line when it comes to, okay, listening to the pastor, but also allowing God to say and minister to us the way that he wants to? Because if at all, did you seek the Lord on that? Did you go to him and say, should I give up all my friends? Or did you just run with what was said and you wanted to do what was right and honorable because your heart was in the right place to be obedient to that so you can honor your husband?
So I say this a lot. I didn't find God until I left church.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it felt.
Mm-hmm.
And at that particular time, all I knew, I can say that it was religious based now. There was a lot of legalism, but that's
Mm-hmm.
not how it felt. At the time, it felt like I was, you know, they were very dynamic. He and his wife were very dynamic, very open about the mistakes that they had made, very honest about the things that they had been through. And so I was one who could always tell someone who was just preaching to be heard versus those who actually wanted to help. And that's how this pastor and first lady were. They sincerely were and are, to my knowledge, in a place that they do want to tell people uh, about having a relationship with God versus a relationship versus religion. Where I got it wrong is that I was too young to understand that even though what they were saying was correct, it wasn't a one size fit all thing.
Okay.
You know, so yes, I understood because both of them had been cheated on. I understood the, you know, don't have friends of the opposite sex makes complete sense because they had both witnessed what happened on the other side. But I didn't take the time to actually do inventory with my situation.
Mm-hmm.
My situation, I had been friends with those guys since middle school, since
Mm-hmm.
high school. So if nothing had happened up to that point, why would it happen now? And
Mm-hmm.
and added to that, you know, my now ex-husband, he has some insecurities, and that's another thing that I think people, specifically women, have to be mindful of. You know, is the Bible really being taught as it is? If you are walking the Christian faith, is the Bible actually being taught the way that it is written, or is the Bible being taught in a way that it continues to keep men just ahead of women in thought, word, action, deed, whatever? You add an insecure man into Christianity, and he doesn't want anybody around his woman as it is, and he gets under a pastor who says don't have male friends, he's going to jump all over that. And that has
Mm,
nothing to do with the pastor, with God, or anything. That has to do with his insecurities not being checked, not being healed, and him finding a way to use that to his advantage.
hmm. And was the attack done in front of your son Logan?
No, he was smart enough to take him over to his parents' house.
Okay.
He told them that he thought he was coming down with a cold. He wanted to take some medicine, but he didn't want to sleep through Logan possibly waking up. And that's the reason uh, EMT asked where my son was. They saw a pair of, little baby shoes that
Yeah.
indicated there was a kid here. And that's why they asked, where is he? And that's why I said I didn't know, because I never got to go back to the room to even see him, but I never heard him. So that's how I knew he wasn't there.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm
Yeah.
I'm thankful for that it didn't happen, because can you imagine that trauma putting on him, and then now you have that
Mm-hmm.
to deal with as well. So
Exactly.
now the ambulance get there, and
Mm-hmm.
you're kept alive because you're still talking, you were still
Mm-hmm.
communicating. So at
Mm-hmm.
that point, what happens now?
So when EMT arrived, I heard one of them let out this loud gasp, and that's when I knew how bad I looked. And so they came over to start, doing their assessment and stuff. And at that point, I didn't feel any pain. I wasn't feeling anything. I guess it was, shock. So I didn't feel how badly the injuries were until they moved me. They got ready to move me to put me on a stretcher. And the last thing I remember is letting out this really loud scream. And then I woke up 2 days later.
Oh, wow. In the hospital. Okay. Wow, that's a lot to take in, Allison. And you are
Yeah.
definitely a survivor, because you don't look like anything that you've been through, you know.
Yeah.
And so now, when you wake up out of the coma, obviously, what happens with him, or even what happens furthermore with you?
So when I woke up, I was in ICU, and I had been fitted, like I said, with chest tubes. And I never felt the stab wounds when he was stabbing me. I didn't even know, like I said, that he had stabbed me. But for the better part of, I'd say, seven days, I got to feel how it felt to be stabbed every time I inhaled. That's how bad the chest tube felt. So anytime I inhaled, voluntarily, involuntarily, I felt like I was being stabbed all over again. And so it was very uncomfortable. Uh, I'm a very ambitious, independent. I'm a very independent soul, and to get to a place where I can't go to the bathroom by myself, I couldn't walk by myself, um, I couldn't bathe myself. That was hard, especially when you're only 32. You're only 32 and you can't do these things by yourself. And so that part was really hard. I tried my best to be as kind as I could to everyone who
Mhm.
worked on me. I
Yeah.
had a couple of people, a couple of uh, techs who came in to do x-rays that were not very kind or uh, empathetic to what I had attached to me. So when they would come and do their daily x-rays, those particular individuals made it very painful. It took a lot for me to try to find a way to sleep. Um, it was a very humbling process. So all I knew is I wanted to get out. I wanted to get out. Uh, I think it was day 4 before I actually saw myself, where they allowed me to get out of bed, and I was able to go to a mirror in the room that I was in and actually see how bad I was. And that was real hard. That was very hard. And because of the staples and the open spots in my scalp, I couldn't shampoo the blood out of my hair. I had to walk around with that probably for 3 weeks. 3 weeks I had to walk around, and the blood was so matted in my hair that a couple of nurses happened to ask me what shade of red I had, they thought it was a hair color and they liked it, and I had to tell them that it wasn't a hair color. It was dried up blood. So um, it was just it's not something that I've ever seen anyone in my family go through. I couldn't believe that I was the first one to go through it. It was just a lot. It was a lot to take in, but I wanted to get out. I wanted to get out, and I wanted to raise my son. Uh, that's all I wanted.
And your son is still at his father's parents' house at this point, because you
Mm-hmm.
don't even know where he is. You're still unaware of his whereabouts. So
Mm-hmm.
he's still there at his. So did the father get arrested? Like, was
So when
there the
he
accountability there?
Well, when he left the house after attacking me, he just left, and he ended up being found. I think it was 2 days later. He ended up being found in Tennessee. So he actually left the state, which made him a fugitive. Um, they found him in Tennessee. They brought him back. I think it took 9 months for us to actually be seen and for him to actually be sentenced. And at that point, he was sentenced to 11 to 13 years.
Okay. So at this point, going back to you, Allison, what is the process? What does the process look like for you to even begin to be where you are now?
So hindsight, people say, is always 2020, and so that attack actually was the catalyst to what everyone sees today. And what I mean by that is, prior to that attack, I've always been a little bit spunky, but only around people that I knew. Uh, I was on a completely different path in terms of the things that I thought I wanted to do, where I wanted to be. Not as outspoken as I am now, not as confident in myself as I am now. And I was living out almost the life that I wanted and was working towards finishing it, but it was so far below what my actual purpose was, and I would have never achieved where I am now had I been allowed to stay either in the marriage in North Carolina. Everything changed. Everything changed. I had to learn how to be a single mother, which is something I never thought I would be, and I had to learn how to juggle uh, a lot of different things. I went through a layoff. There was a total 9 month period. It was split up between two instances, but there was a 9 month period where I couldn't keep Logan with me because I couldn't afford rent and daycare. So I had to send him to stay with my mom at the time. Um, it was a lot. There were several days where I felt like I was never going to get it together, where it was never going to fall into place, where I felt like I was just doing things by the seat of my pants and just seeing what stuck. I didn't feel in control. I didn't feel organized. I didn't feel like I had my crap together. And that went on for a very long time. And moving here to Dallas, thinking that I had, met this happy ending and met this person that I was going to be with forever, just to find out that I was running into a narcissist, something I didn't even know was a thing. I didn't even know it existed, and having to start that type of healing process over. And a lot of people don't believe it unless they've gone through it.
Yeah.
But healing through the abuse of a narcissist was harder than healing from the abuse from the attack that my ex-husband did on me. Those physical scars, they're not fun, but they heal much faster than these emotional and mental scars do. And so that took an even longer process. And what basically had to happen was me learning how to decode what it was about me that specifically wanted to hold on to the narcissist, finding out about my codependent behavior. Where did that come from? What part did, my childhood play into all of that?
Wow. So, Allison, so not only did you have to heal from the outside, but you had to heal mentally and physically, emotionally, from the inside. So the very fact that you just hit it on the head, that you had to even just go back to childhood. So this is much more than, a physical attack. All of this stuff transpired. That was the root of it, but it had to all transpire to get you back to the foundation, back to the root of yourself. Because a lot of times, and you can correct me if you're wrong, because you're the relationship guru, like you're the coach relationship, expert, but what's ever on the inside of us that we haven't healed, whether it's trauma, whether it's childhood issues, whatever it may be, we're going to attract that to us. So it's not so much that person, but it's like, okay, why do this keep coming back to me? Why do I keep going around the same mountain? What is going on the inside of me that would attract such a woman or a man to me?
So what I try to do anytime people ask me this specific question, I want us. I think we have to rephrase what's happening because people are taking certain terminology and running wild with it. I think in terms of what you just asked, I think the better question, or the question that I have my clients ask instead is, what lesson am I failing? You know how you're in school, how you're in school, and if you fail a test, you got to take it again. And if you fail a test, so I want us to focus more on what is the lesson, because what's happening, people are constantly being told, well, if it's in your life, you're attracting it. If it's in your life, you're attracting it. And then you hear people who say you attract what you are. But I've also met and been a victim of people who are cheaters, who are manipulators, who are liars. And I'm none of those things. And so what ends up happening is being told that I've attracted it. If I'm not aware of who I am, I'm now my healing is stalled, because now I'm trying to figure out, oh, well, where have I manipulated and where have I lied? But you haven't.
That's
you haven't
good.
Manipulated. You haven't lied.
That's good.
If we're constantly running into the same people, the whole, well, you're attracting them, that's not necessarily empowering. I think when it was initially said, it was meant to be, but you add in, bitter men who were upset that they haven't been chosen, and you add in bitter women who don't want to acknowledge they're wrong. And that whole you attract what you are is more of a deflection than anything that will help you. So instead, if you keep running into the same situation, ask, what lesson am I failing? What am I missing so that I can move on to the next step?
And what was the lesson that you learned?
So the lesson I learned through dealing with the narcissist that I moved here to be with, the lesson that I learned is I had to get to a place where I was confident in me. I grew up very confident in my intelligence. I grew up very confident in my ability to make friends. I grew up in my confidence or confident in my ability to, I'm told I never meet a stranger. All of that is great. But when it came to my dealings with men, boys, it was never very successful. Like, I had a great first boyfriend, and then I had a string of crappy people after that. And a lot of that was because my self-esteem said, okay, well, maybe I'm not good enough to have that guy, so maybe that's why this guy's coming around. Or, well, maybe the only thing that I can offer is my intelligence or whatever. So I just settled on being the smart one. I settled on being everything except Allison. Allison is smart, but she's other things too. Allison can speak up for herself. Allison can do these things. And it took me going through the process of dealing with this narcissist to finally find my voice, to finally get angry enough to start speaking up. And you go from one extreme to the other. A lot of times you go from one extreme to the other until you find a place of balance. And so once I found my voice, like, I never shut up. Never shut up. I if you were wrong, I said you were wrong. And if you made me mad, I told you you were mad. And if I wanted to cuss you out, that's exactly what I did. And so I'm just now leveling off into understanding, Okay, there's a time and a place where you need all of the things that you've been. Now, let's put it together and figure out through wisdom when you need to pull that particular part of you out. You don't have to be aggressive all day just because you're tired of taking hits and being used and being mistreated. You don't have to walk around like this all the time. Be more discerning in when you need to do that and how to approach the situation.
That's really, really good. That's good advice that, you don't have to be one thing all the time. Learn to use a spirit of discernment so you know what you need to bring forth, who you need to bring forth. And not that you have like split personalities and all that. That's not what we're saying.
Right.
But
Yeah.
just knowing when to be soft, when to be feminine, when to be, about your business and take care and do what you need to do.
Exactly.
So, Allison, on another note, you mentioned earlier in the conversation that it wasn't until you left the church. And what I want to make clear is actually leaving that ministry that you're a part of, because it's one thing to leave a ministry that that's no longer serving you, or you've already received, or you already gave what you needed to give to that ministry. And so God is transitioning you on to another level of him, another level of glory. So how was that dynamic between your relationship with God and you when you said that when I left the church, that's when I discovered God for myself?
So when I say I left the church, I mean I left religion. I left Christianity completely. I had run into, I'll say it like this. I had run into people. People are going to be who they are. It doesn't matter how you dress them. It doesn't matter where you meet them. People are going to be people. And I got to a point where I was tired of being involved in ministries where people were being people, but it was only being called out if it wasn't a popular person. So if you weren't the pastor, you could still be checked. And if you weren't the mother of the church, or if you hadn't given several $100,000 to the ministry, you were untouchable, but everyone else was under a microscope. I got tired of the judgment. I got tired of the hypocrisy. I got tired of dealing with just internally. I had gotten to a point where I realized I wasn't really serving God. I was afraid of God because everything I was doing was a checklist. It wasn't, I want to do this because I love God. It was, I want to do this so I don't go to hell. And that's not a good place to be. Okay, well, let me hurry up and, I got to go to Bible study and I need to make sure I'm at church every Sunday. And they asked me to sing a solo, so I got to say yes. And I got choir practice. Oh, I got to go to the women's group. Let me make sure my son's in children's church. Life was nothing but checklists. You can't have a relationship like that with anybody. So it wasn't until I finally left all of that behind that I was able to just get still and feel like I was in a place where I could be honest about my feelings. I was angry at God about a lot of things that had happened in life. I was angry about everything from my dad dying early to my mom dying days after praying for her. I felt like my prayers were being ignored. I felt like God was ignoring me. I felt like I was constantly getting the opposite of what I asked for. And when I finally left the church, I just let God have it. Because at that point, I didn't care. I was like, strike me down or whatever. But what's going on in life is not making sense. And if you don't want me, then just say you don't want me. And I can go on about my way. And for several years, that's how I lived life. I'm not going to tell people to leave the church, God, but you don't bother me and I'm not going to bother you. That's how it felt. And that's what I did. And I don't think that people understand that. And you said this at the beginning, when we were talking offline, people don't understand that life is going to get you.
Yes,
no
it
matter
is.
who or what you serve, life is still going to get you. And if you are constantly being hammered and you're in a situation where you're being told that you can't react to how you're being hammered, at some point you're going to blow up. And that's basically what happened with me.
So how do I want to say this? Just give me a moment. We or I, that is a part of the body of Christ. What do we need to do to rectify the people that are on the outside looking in? Because the thing is that we want to be able to share the good news. We want to be able to, the church should want to be the antidote, the answer, to help, to be that light, to be that hope, encouragement, inspire, all those things according to what Jesus died on the cross for, according to the way that we need to be. So what mistake do we make with being the body?
It's been my experience that Christians do more talking than walking. And we're in a society right now where no one believes anything you say. It's all about your actions. And I don't think people understand, if you are someone who wants to bring someone into the Christian faith, it can't be about how big your church is, or how your pastor is the best pastor, or you showing off whatever car you have, or how big your house is. No one cares about that. They can find that on any channel that shows a rapper, a football player, any athlete. They can go. They have other options to have the big car and the nice house. If you are sincerely focused on, I think the term is winning souls. If you are sincerely focused on winning souls, the walk has to be better. If it is obvious that, for example, if you know that your pastor is doing some stuff that they shouldn't do, the Bible says, touch not my anointed, that's what has people not trusting a lot of Christians. You come up with, the thought process is you keep coming up with reasons not to check the head of the church, so why would I listen to you? Because what you're showing me is all you care about are titles. You don't even care about behavior, so why should I? If you make a mistake, own up to it. If you want people to know what accountability looks like, walk that out. It's been several years, probably it may be a decade or more. But one of the things that I respected most, I don't know if you remember, back when Dietrich Haddon was married the first time.
Yeah.
Dietrich had married. He admitted that he committed adultery. He admitted it. He came out and said, "I did it." He came out and said, "I let the trappings of the music industry get me to a place that I shouldn't have gone, and I cheated." But he said it, and he followed up with sitting himself down.
Yeah, he confessed it. That's right. And that's what happens, where a lot of it, because in the word it does says, confess your sins to one another. Don't hide it in darkness. And also use the spirit of discernment to know who you can confess that thing to, where it's not going to be told to sister so-and-so, brother so-and-so, and then they're looking at you like, oh, you did that, out of shame and guilt. Because one of the things is that shame and guilt plagues us within the body. It plagues us, the shame and the guilt. And I do believe sincerely that people don't want to be the way that they are. But it's like, how? I need help. And who's going to help me without judging me? Wait a minute, we got some comments here.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So Allison, it says, Speak Our Truth Inc. She said, amen. And then also she said, this is a very conversation between many of us have left religion for the same reason. So it's definitely plaguing the body of Christ. And I keep saying the body because we make up the body. I'm not interested in the building. I'm not interested in the whole entire congregation, because there is a remnant of us who do go after God. We are men and women after God's own heart, like David was. And so how do we believers begin to build the bridge, begin to build the gap for this walk, this life to be attractive? And one of the things that I want to highlight and say is that I do believe that that whole prosperity gospel message messed a lot of things up. It's okay to be blessed. And I'm not saying that blessings are bad and you should just be downtrodden, poor and all that stuff. I'm not saying that. But when you're so much speaking about prosperity, about, oh, the houses, the cars, the things, the material things that you can get, then it becomes an issue, because you're just wanting the blessings, but not the blesser, not the one who desires us, who wants to commune with us, who wants us to be drawn near. He says, if you abide in me, I will abide in you. And so that relationship piece with the blesser, with him, is missing. And we really need to get back to that foundation, because when I read and study the word, I read it from a love point of view. I read it from, don't do this because it's going to harm you. It's going to lead you down a path that you don't want to go down. And I'm trying to protect you from that. Not much of the legalistic, like the checklist. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't. Like one of my high school friends, and I won't mention his name, but he made a post either yesterday or the day before yesterday. Like, what can you do that's fun? What can you do that's safe, but it's also not boring, right? And he did his checklist. He said, marriage is safe, but it's boring. And I was like, looking at his list, not out of judgment, not pointing a finger or anything, but I was just like, wow, like, why do we think that, things that are safe have to be boring? And he says, name one thing that is fun, but it's safe, or something like that. And I said, roller coasters. Roller coasters are fun, but it's safe because, the harness and everything that you have to put on. And he was like, I was thinking that I was saying that, but why? Because this relationship, this walk, yes, life happens, but it shouldn't be a chain and ball. It shouldn't be I got to do this because, I don't want God to look at me. And why do we look at him as a punisher when really he's a lover? And it's twofold, because he doesn't, his word is his word. He's not going to change his word for nobody. It is what it is. When you think of a kingdom, you think of a king. When he puts out his word, it becomes a law because it's established. But also, with that said, it's loving kind. It's not so much what you can't do, but your heart begins to change and transformation begins to take place where, what? I used to do that. I had a taste for that, but I no longer want to do that because of my love for him. So it's getting back to that love aspect. What do you think about that, Allison?
So my experience as a Christian, bringing up what you just said about God not changing his word for anybody. Looking back during that time where I was under legalism and that stuff, God didn't need to change his word. There were too many people doing it for him. There was no need for God to change his word. The pastor was changing it to fit him, and the deacon was changing it to fit him. And you have pastors in Utah, using it to defend why they want to marry 13-year-old girls. God doesn't have to change his word because there's too many people doing it and not enough people saying stop it. And you have stop it. And you have people, so you have people twisting the Bible. You have other people supporting it because he's a pastor, the deacon, the minister of music. He's won us 5 different choir awards, or she's cute in those heels. And that comes out to try to witness to who they say is the world. But the problem is the people that they think are worldly are also discerning themselves. They're not, the people now are not as naive as the quote unquote worldly people may have been 30, 40 years ago. These worldly people have seen it all, been through it all, have learned it all, have seen a lot behind closed doors when they were in church. They've seen a lot behind closed doors that they shouldn't have seen by an uncle, a cousin, an aunt, a father, a mother. They've seen a lot. So you're not going to be able to come at this society, this generation of people, and just say, well, you need to follow me because this is the only way or you're going to go to hell. A lot of them are going to be like, I've been in hell. What else you got? What else you got? I've been living in hell since I was 2. That doesn't scare me. And so I think people need to understand that we have so many people who have been hurt, who have been disappointed, who have been neglected, who have been abandoned, who have had to live and grow up on survival, not love. They've had to grow up on survival. You don't get to tell a person who has grown up off survival that if they don't do something your way, things aren't going to work out for them because they've already lived that life. That's no longer going to work. Now, what they will pay attention to is if you decide to be who you say you are.
Yeah.
They will pay attention to consistency. They will pay attention to you acknowledging when you mess up and not looking for a reason in the Bible to brush it away. They will pay attention to that. But
so more of being open, being transparent where we are, and not using the Bible, the scriptures for manipulation, and using it as a weapon, weaponizing it.
And holding the people accountable who do it. There are too many people out here, and we've seen it in the news. We've seen it on social media. We got too many pastors out here not being checked. And as long as those pastors aren't being checked, you are giving the world reason to ignore the whole body. You are. Because what the perception is, well, I mean, I'm already doing that. I'm already sleeping with 2 different people. I mean, you said it's okay for the pastor to do it. You won't sit him down. So why are you telling me to stop? Mind your business. I'm just saying.
Woo, stepping on them toes.
I'm going to stop, though.
It's okay. Listen, we speak freely here. We speaking openly here because the bottom line is about souls. It is. I mean, for me, it is. It's about winning souls for him. And all I can do is be an evangelist and use this platform how he see fit. But the bottom line is that he wants truth. And it's going to come a time where, where the churchy, like they have the look, it's no longer going to serve his purpose because he is going to do a new thing. So what happens when he used the prostitutes who have been changed and reformed with him? He did a miraculous change with them, and the prostitute, what that used to be, starts to preach the word, and the drug dealer, the crackheads, and everything. Because when in a Bible verse, I want to say it's in the 4 Gospels, but mainly in Matthew, when he says to go to the the people, to bring them into the banquet hall. And one said, oh, I'm busy. I'm about to I just married my wife. The other one said, I have to attend to my ox and all this and that. He said, okay, well, go to the byways and the highways, go to the ones that, are out on the outskirts and bring them to the banquet, And so I think that the latter part of what we're in with the revival and, the third awakening and all that stuff that's supposed to happen is going to be the least likely people that he's going to use. The people that you look at and despise and judge and say, oh, that, they this and they that, because they don't have the proper attire like the Pharisees or the Sadducees of old Testament had, the look of it, of what you think should be teaching this or preaching this. So that's really good, Allison. Thank you for highlighting that. And so on another note, Allison, where are you? Where can they find you? Because I know that you do have a podcast. So go ahead and say what you need to say, with your platforms and stuff.
Sure. And I do want to say thank you for having me. I have really enjoyed this. Guys, thank you so much. I am the Petite Powerhouse, Allison Denise, relationship coach, blogger, And to connect with me, you can find me on YouTube and Instagram under I am Allison Denise. Be sure to subscribe to YouTube. Make sure you hit the bell notification so that you don't miss any videos that come up. Going forward, you will start to find the Allison Denise podcast there and only there. And that will be on Tuesdays from 2 to 3 p.m. Central Time. You will also be able to find episodes of the Bad Squad radio show. We air on YouTube as well. Go to the Bad Squad YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe there too. And we are live there every Friday evening from 9 till around 11 or so.
And so right now we're going to transition with the fire rapid questions. I ask these questions to all of my guests. No one is exempt. And so it's just like icebreakers, you know, it's just giving us a peek into your relationship with him, you know, because everyone's different. He's unique. He made us all different. So the first question is, what is your favorite verse in the Bible?
You know, I think my favorite one is, I'm trying to figure out how, it's a long one. I'm trying to figure out how to truncate it. No, I'll say this one. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him. He will direct your paths. And the reason that one is important to me is because that was the first one that I finally broke down for myself. It wasn't just something that I rattled off because I heard it so many times in church, but it's because it was the one that I finally just learned to, okay, what is it that God meant? Not my pastors. What did God mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Number 2, how do you get into the presence of the Lord?
So I'm a little different. I spend a lot of time meditating. I found that prayer is when you ask. For me, prayer is when I tend to ask for anything from guidance to something happening. But it's when I meditate that I finally get quiet enough to listen. So that's what I do.
Number 3, what do you think heaven will be like?
You know, I have to be honest. How can I answer that? I think that heaven is going to be something that will surprise a lot of people.
I think so too.
I think that's the easiest way to answer it because I don't think it's anything like what we're being told it is.
No, and from what I've read about like revelations of heaven and that there's portals that you can actually look into to see your family members that are still on the earth. They're, when they look into these portals, they're declaring and decreeing over you that, you know, you're going to triumph, you have victory, like pretty much speaking life over you. There are clothes that you wear, tunics, and, you know, your hair is designed differently, and really everyone looks young. So how we look now in this body is not the glorified body that we're to receive. And based off of your work that you've done, based off of your calling, your ministry, your gifts, your talents, the things that he's placing you to do, to carry out, you're going to be rewarded, you know, for that. So it's like each person that passes away, that whole transition, and you go before him, it's like a mandate, it's like an appointment. You go before him and he gives you a treasure, you know, and then your loved ones that are already there, they also pick out treasures and things for you to adorn your hair with, or to adorn, to wear, or do whatever. And there's food, but everything that's in heaven consists of light. It's all made out of light, from what I've read. And so I thought that was cool. So yeah, you're right. It's not going to be anything that we can ever think and imagine, because his ways are not our ways and his thoughts are not our thoughts. So number 4, who would you like to meet in heaven? It can be from the Old Testament or New Testament.
I want to meet the harlot. I want to meet
Of
the
course,
harlot.
Allison. Of course. The harlot, like, girl.
Yes. I want to meet her.
Yeah, that's the first, but that's good because a lot, and you know, I don't knock anybody. Like, what you think and what you say is who you are. I don't knock anybody because there's no right or wrong answer. There's no right answer to say or politically correct or none of that. And so I get a lot of people say, oh, I want to meet Moses. I want to meet Paul, Peter, you know. But like, I think about the women in the Bible. I think about Hosea, who had to marry, you know, the prostitute, the one who was committing adultery and cheating. Like, she has a story too. Or Moses' wife, Zipporah, she was a Black woman, and Moses and his brother and sister, Miriam, they were hating on her. So even her story, because she has a beginning, she has a story too. And so I just think about the least likely people in the Bible who you overlook or, you know, don't pay attention to, but they have a story too. You know, the prayer of Jabez, you know, Jabez is minor, but he's a big part of what God did for him as well. So we can't forget about the small things as well as the big things and everything in between. Exactly. So number 5, given the opportunity where God manifests himself before you in a quiet, intimate setting and you're face to face with him, what would you say to him? Allison, because I know you. Listen, I listen to your podcast and I'll be like, okay, Allison.
That's why I had to swallow it. I was like, don't say that.
But why not? Why do you have to swallow it?
Now, if I'm gonna be honest, if God was before me, like, the very first thing I would probably say is WTF. Like, I do not understand life. Like, what in the world? What is happening? Why have I gone through all of it? What is the point? That's probably what, you know, I know most people want me to say, oh my God, I would just worship before him. And that's just not, it's not true. It's just not true. What in the world? Why? Please make me understand.
That's interesting because this question that I'll answer is, given the opportunity, if he was to manifest to me face to face, I would want him to show me the creation, like from the moment not even from the moment you said, let there be light, not even from in the book of Genesis, not even there. Take me to the very essence, the very beginning, like when y'all was all in heaven and Lucifer started tripping and Michael had to, you know, he got dealt with, he fell. And then from that very beginning, from that point, all the way up to not even where we are now, but all the way, because like I do talk to him and I do ask him, like, God, and I know it's in the Bible if you read it into the Revelation and everything, but I want him to take me from when they were all in heaven and how he created them, all the way up to where the Africans was kidnapped from slavery, brought over here to America, and that whole dynamic of everything. Like, just, I want to just see it from his perspective and just want him just to show me and just explain things to me and just really talk to me about it. Like, I think from that point all the way up until like, you know, I'm sure I'll, you know, be so grateful and pass out and cry and all of those things. But I just want to be able to talk to him on some real stuff and just have a conversation with him about that and just show like his creation. Like, why did you create Pluto? Like, what purpose does the planets have? And, you know, why? Just a lot of things that are just not something that I can just pick up and read, but I just want to hear from him. So last question, this is the bonus question. Is it worth being in a relationship with him out of all the things that you have gone through? You know, I'm sure, like you said, like we said, life happens. No one is exempt from life happening. So would you still stay in a committed relationship, not even knowing what lies ahead, but just trusting him and believing him by faith, not by what you see and your emotions and everything? Why? And would you still be in a committed relationship with him?
Verdict is still out on that.
The verdict is still out on that.
The verdict is still out on that. I am equally aware of how fortunate I am in a lot of areas. I'm grateful for everything I have. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful to be to still be alive, because 32 could have been it for me. I'm very grateful, and I equally still have some situations in my life where I just don't yet see the point of me going through them. So that's where Allison is right now.
Well, I just want to say thank you for your realness. Thank you for your transparency. I'm pretty sure there are people out here that feel not exactly how you feel, but close to it, because they have their own personal things that they have to walk out. And it says in the word, work out your salvation with fear and with trembling. I have to work mine out on a daily basis. And when I wake up, I have to make a decision and a choice whether I'm going to serve my flesh, which is not going to work out for myself or for anyone, because we know how the flesh can be, or am I going to choose and serve out of my spirit, out of the Holy Spirit, out of my relationship with God, because we all have a free will. We all have choices and a free will that we're faced with on a daily basis. It's just deciding on how you're led. Which way are you going to go? Which way, what are you going to do with that? And so to my audience, to the viewers on YouTube as well as Facebook, thank you for sharing. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing and liking. I really, really appreciate it. And one thing with this show, with this platform, is to speak honestly and candidly. There's no judgment here. Everyone is on one even level playing field, because God is no respecter of person. He has created us to be different. He gave us free will. And so with that said, it depends on, what you do with it. And I just really, as always, want to encourage people to seek him for yourself. Go to him for yourself. What does God say? Because he will have the final say. He will have the last say. But if anything, seek him out and really see what this walk, this relationship is all about for yourself. Taste and see that the Lord is good for yourself. And so I want to thank you all. Actually, next Saturday, no, not next Saturday, this Saturday coming up, I'm going to be celebrating my birthday. My mom is coming into town tomorrow. And so we're going to hit the road, go on a road trip, and I'm going to celebrate my birthday. Yes. I've been doing it all this week, but I'm going to celebrate my birthday from Thursday to Sunday. Monday is actually my birthday, March 22nd. I will be turning 39. Can you believe it?
Nice.
I'm telling you, in the words of Charlamagne, listen, aging like wine and not like milk, okay? I am excited. I mean, I feel like I've been doing a lot of reflecting over my whole decade of 30s. And there was some great moments in my 30s, and there was some whack crazy, like, why is this happening to me in my 30s? And so I do believe that I am closing out a chapter of 30s. I'm going to really just reflect and celebrate my 39th birthday and prepare and get ready for 40. So I told myself, I said, March 22nd is my birthday, Monday. I said, that's the day I'm going to start working out. And I'm going to be consistent with my workout, not to lose weight, but just to gain, to tone, to gain momentum, to be healthy, Right. And I'm going to be committed that for my whole entire 39 up to 40, I'm going to be working out. I'm going to be fit. I'm going to be toned, because I got to do this 40-year-old birthday photo shoot. I have to. So you all hold me accountable. Just say, hey, Ashley, you've been working out. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I have, because I'm definitely committed, even through the cold, even through the winter.
Right. That's hard.
That's hard. Because I'm like I hibernate, through the spring and summertime. I'm out and about, I'm working out, I'm hitting the gym. And then as soon as the first day of winter, as soon as it gets cold, as soon as that temperature drop, I'm at home we gonna pick it up for the next spring. So with that said, thank you guys so much for rocking with me. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Check out Allison on her podcast, on her platform. God bless you all. I will see you guys next Wednesday. Take care.
Okay.